A hospital visit turned into chaos where my stepsister's past secrets got exposed in front of everyone. I never thought a trip to the hospital would turn into the kind of family drama you only see on Reddit or in bad soap operas. But last week, it happened to me. So, quick background. My stepsister Carol, 29F, and I have never been close. She's always had this perfect girl image, successful job, charming personality, the one everyone in the family compares me to. But underneath, she's had her messy moments. And apparently, some of those moments caught up to her in the worst possible way. It all started when my stepdad, her dad, 57M, was admitted to the hospital for a minor heart procedure. Nothing life-threatening, but scary enough that the family showed up. I got there with my mom, and Carol was already in the waiting room, pacing and looking anxious. At first, things were normal, just awkward small talk, checking our phones, sipping burnt coffee from the vending machine. But then, out of nowhere, they showed up. They being Jake, 32M, Carol's ex-boyfriend, and his wife. I swear, you could cut the tension in that waiting room with a knife. Carol froze like a deer in headlights. My mom whispered, "What are they doing here?" Jake walked right up to her and said, "We need to talk. You can't keep running from this." At this point, I'm thinking, what the hell is happening? The nurses are walking by, patients are sitting nearby, and it's like Carol forgot where we were. She snapped, "Not here, Jake, please, not now." But Jake didn't back down. He raised his voice loud enough that people turned to stare. "Everyone should know what you did, Carol. You almost ruined my marriage. You think you can just erase the past?" The colour drained from her face. She hissed at him, "Lower your voice." My mom tried to intervene, saying, "Excuse me, this is not the time or the place." But Jake's wife, clearly furious, jumped in. "No, let them hear. Let your family know the truth about their little princess." And now, half the waiting room was pretending not to listen, but totally eavesdropping. Carol's perfect image, crumbling by the second. And then came the bombshell. Jake spat out, "You were sleeping with me while I was engaged. You knew about her, Carol. You knew, and you didn't care." My jaw literally dropped. My mom gasped out loud. "And Carol?" She looked like she might faint right there. I wanted to crawl into the floor because the whole damn waiting room heard it. Nurses started giving side eyes. An older lady across from us muttered, "Shameless," and Carol just stood there, humiliated. She finally whispered, "Stop please, not here." But it was too late. The secret was out, and no one in the room was ever going to look at her the same way again. And honestly, that was just the beginning. If part 1 felt like a bomb going off, part 2 was the aftershock that just kept getting worse. After Jake dropped that accusation in the middle of the hospital waiting room, I swear time froze. Carol's face turned pale, like all the blood had drained from her body. She stammered, "That's not true, not like that." But the problem was, it didn't sound convincing. Jake's wife folded her arms and said, "Not like that. Are you kidding me? You were texting him at 2 in the morning while I was asleep next to him. You sent pictures. You begged him not to marry me, and you want to stand here and act innocent." My mom literally clutched her pearls like, she put her hand on her chest and looked at Carol with this mix of shock and disappointment. "Carol, tell me this isn't true." Carol looked desperate. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "I was lonely. I made a mistake. But it's not what you think." Jake exploded. "Not what I think. You showed up at my bachelor party hotel. You told me if I called off the wedding, he cut himself off, realizing he was about to spill something even messer." At this point, the nurses had had enough. One of them, this older lady with glasses, came over and snapped, "This is a hospital, not a courtroom. Either calm down or I'll have security escort you all out." But did that stop anyone? Nope. Just then, my stepdad's sister, my aunt, 54F, arrived. She walked in all cheerful, holding a bag of snacks, completely oblivious to the scene she was walking into. She took one look at Carol, who had tears streaming down her face, then at Jake and his wife standing there like prosecutors, and said, "What's going on here?" Jake's wife didn't hesitate, asked her niece why she thought it was okay to sleep with someone else's fiancé. The words hit like a hammer. My aunt's jaw literally dropped. She turned to Carol and said, "Please tell me that's not true." Carol buried her face in her hands. She couldn't even answer. Which, honestly, was an answer in itself. The humiliation was unbearable to watch. Everyone in the waiting room had stopped pretending they were flat out staring now. Even the receptionist behind the desk leaned forward like she was watching a TV drama. My mom tried to do damage control. She pulled Carol aside and whispered harshly, "Do you realize how bad this looks? Your father is upstairs having heart surgery, and you're down here being exposed like this." Carol choked out, "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was in a bad place. I didn't think it would come out like this." Jake shook his head. You didn't think about anyone but yourself, and now you're embarrassed. Good, you should be." And then, like fate had a sixth sense of humour, my stepdad's doctor came out into the waiting room to give us an update, only to walk straight into the middle of the chaos. By the time the doctor stepped into the waiting room, it was pure chaos. Carol was still clutching her face, Jake and his wife were glaring daggers at her, and my mom and aunt were whispering frantically. The doctor, oblivious at first, looked around and said, "Is everything okay here?" Carol groaned. "No, everything is not okay, and now you're here too." She looked at us like she wanted to disappear through the floor. Jake's wife didn't hold back. "She's lying, doctor. She slept with my husband while he was engaged. You should know the truth about your patient's family." The doctor blinked, confused. I don't know what to say. This isn't really relevant to the patient's care." That's when it got worse. My aunt, who had been hovering behind Carol like a protective shadow, finally snapped. "Relevant or not, this is our family, and you, Carol, have made a fool of yourself in front of everyone." Carol started shaking, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for it to get out like this. I didn't think anyone would find out." My mom tried to calm everyone down, waving her hands frantically. "Everyone, please, this is a hospital. My husband is having surgery upstairs. Can we please handle this privately?" Jake, sensing the drama was at its peak, leaning closer. "Private? You call sleeping with my fiancée and lying to everyone private? No, this needs to be out in the open." A couple of nurses started subtly inching toward the security desk, and the receptionist was frantically pressing buttons under her counter. You could see the scene becoming official. Someone was about to be asked to leave forcibly if it escalated. Carol finally screamed, "I am not proud of what I did, but you don't get to parade my mistakes in front of my entire family." Her voice cracked, and for a second, she looked almost like the scared little sister she used to be. Then, the doctor, clearly tired of trying to keep the peace, raised his voice. "Enough if you can't control yourselves. I'm calling security. This is a hospital, not a courtroom, not a reality show. The patient upstairs doesn't need to know about your family's trauma." That was the trigger. Carol's sobbing turned into uncontrollable shaking. My mom's face was red with frustration, and Jake's wife was hissing like a cat. The entire waiting room was watching the spectacle, some whispering, some openly staring, and a few filming discreetly on their phones. In that moment, Carol realised something devastating. Her carefully curated image, the perfect life she always projected, had shattered completely in a matter of minutes. And everyone she thought admired her, the nurses, the strangers in the waiting room, her own family, had seen it all. It was public humiliation in its worst form, and it was only getting worse. After the doctor's warning, things didn't magically calm down. If anything, the tension just shifted into a quieter, more suffocating panic. Cal slumped into the plastic chairs, still sobbing, while Jake and his wife stood a few feet away, arms crossed and eyes burning. The waiting room was awkwardly silent except for the occasional sniffle or muttered comment from other patients. My mom planted herself next to Carol, trying to whisper reassurances. "It's going to be okay, sweetie. You just breathe. Don't let them push you over the edge." Carol shook her head. "Mom, it's too late. Everyone knows. I'll never hear the end of this, not from our family, not from anyone." At that moment, my aunt, still furious, leaned down, pointing a finger right at Carol. "You think a few tears make this go away? You humiliated yourself, Carol, and you humiliated all of us by dragging our family's name into this." I could see Carol's hands trembling in her lap. She looked like she was trying to shrink into herself, trying to become invisible, but the spotlight wasn't going anywhere. Jake, clearly enjoying the spectacle despite everything, smirked and said, "See, I told you. People have a right to know who you really are. You can't hide behind a perfect image forever." Carol's sobs turned into a strangled laugh, the kind that's part hysteria, part shame. "You think you're helping? You think this makes you feel better? It doesn't. It just ruins everything." Her words hung in the air, raw and desperate. My mom tried to intervene again, tugging at Carol's arm. "Come on, sweetie, let's step outside for a minute." Carol didn't move. "No, why should I run? Why should I hide? Let everyone see." Her voice broke, echoing through the waiting room. The other patients shifted uncomfortably, some trying to ignore it, others stealing glances at the family drama unfolding. My aunt scoffed. "Fine, see if standing there and crying publicly fixes your mistakes, but don't expect us to defend you forever." That cut Carol deep. She looked like she'd just been punched in the chest. Her usual confident, untouchable persona was gone, replaced by raw vulnerability and shame. Then, just when I thought it couldn't get more intense, Jake's wife dropped another bomb. "And don't forget, you're the reason I had to question everything about him, everything. People like you, they ruin lives." Carol's face went white. She pressed her hand against her eyes, shaking. "I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Please just stop." The family was split now. My mom was silently fuming, my aunt was glaring, and I felt stuck between being furious at Carol and wanting to comfort her. It was a mess of emotions. The only thing that was clear, Carol's past was no longer private, and the fallout was only beginning. Everyone in that hospital had witnessed a piece of the chaos, and for the first time, Carol wasn't in control of the narrative. The stage was set for what was about to come full confrontation with the rest of the family, where alliances would be tested, loyalties questioned, and the humiliation would reach its peak. Just when we thought the storm had hit its peak, more families started showing up. My stepdad's sister, my cousin, and even my stepdad's brother wandered into the waiting room, drawn by the commotion. At first the second they saw Carol, red-faced, trembling, and the two strangers, Jake and his wife, standing like accusers. My cousin, Max 27am, whispered to my aunt, "Is this about Carol? What happened?" My aunt muttered, "You don't even want to know, Max, just watch." Carol looked around at all the new eyes on her, panic surging. No, please don't let them get involved. I can handle this myself." But of course, it was too late. Family loyalty didn't protect her anymore. Jake saw his audience and launched again. "She cheated. She lied to everyone. You all think she's perfect, but look at her. She's the one who nearly ruined my marriage." My stepdad's brother, usually quiet and composed, finally spoke up. "Carol, is this true? Or are you telling us this happened?" Carol's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to say anything. The silence was deafening. Even the nurses and hospital staff had stopped pretending to ignore us. Max shook his head in disbelief. "I can't believe this. You let this happen?" Carol finally broke. She shouted, "Yes, I made a huge mistake. Okay, I was selfish. I'm sorry." Her voice cracked and tears streamed freely. "I never meant for it to explode like this. I just didn't know how to fix it." My mom, now furious and exhausted, slammed her hand on the armrest of her chair. "Carol, look at what you've done. Your father is upstairs, lying on a table, and you're down here humiliating yourself in front of everyone." Carol's sobs turned into quiet wails. She looked like she might collapse. The tension in the room was unbearable. Then my aunt, still rigid with anger, walked over, leaning close to Carol. "This isn't just about being embarrassed. It's about respect. You've disrespected all of us, and now the world has seen it too. Do you understand that?" Carol nodded weakly, barely able to look anyone in the eye. "Yes, I understand. I'm so sorry." Jake and his wife exchanged a final glare before heading toward the hospital exit. "We're done here," Jake said, but not without a last pointed look at Carol. Once they left, the waiting room seemed quieter, but the tension lingered. My mom sank into a chair, exhausted. My aunt crossed her arms, still glaring at Carol, and Max shook his head, muttering under his breath. Carol stayed seated, her body shaking, staring down at the floor. It was the kind of public humiliation that doesn't just sting, it lingers. Everyone who had seen it would remember it. And Carol, she would never live it down. The real challenge now wasn't the secret being out, it was how she would face the family, rebuild trust, and live with the embarrassment she had brought upon herself. After the chaos with Jake and his wife finally ended, the hospital waiting room felt heavy, like the air itself was thick with judgment. Carol was still sitting, hunched over, trembling, her face buried in her hands. I couldn't tell if she was crying from shame, fear, or both. My mom sighed and sat beside her. "Carol, look at me. I know you messed up, but you have to start taking responsibility. You can't just hide behind tears." Carol peeked at her, eyes red and puffy. "I know, I don't know how to fix this. Everyone saw everything. I've ruined my reputation. Mom, I've ruined myself." I stayed silent for a moment, unsure if I should intervene. Normally, Carol would have shrugged it off, played the confident one. But this was different. She was genuinely broken. My aunt came closer, still tense, arms folded. "You've embarrassed yourself in front of our whole family, Carol. Do you even understand what that means?" Carol swallowed hard. "Yes, I do, and I'm so sorry. I didn't think about the consequences. I was selfish. I just wanted to be loved, or at least noticed. I didn't care who got hurt." There was a long pause. Even the nurses and staff had stopped glancing over, they were giving us space, but I could feel the tension radiating off Carol like heat from a furnace. Max, still standing by the vending machine, finally spoke up, quietly but firmly. Carol, you hurt a lot of people, not just Jake or his wife. You've hurt our family too, and you need to understand that before anything else can be repaired. Carol nodded again, tears slipping down her cheeks. I do, I understand. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. My mom reached for her hand. You can't change the past, Carol, but you can start making it right. Apologize properly, show people you're taking responsibility. That's all you can do right now. Carol's lips trembled. I will apologize to everyone. I needed to face it first. I needed to feel the weight of what I did. The waiting room had calmed considerably, though a few curious glances still lingered. The staff had resumed their routine. The patients went back to reading or scrolling on their phones. Outside, the sounds of the hospital beeping monitors, faint footsteps, muffled voices reminded us that life went on, even when chaos had unfolded. Carol looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw vulnerability instead of arrogance. I don't expect anyone to forgive me right away, she said quietly. I just need a chance to make it right. I nodded. You'll get that chance, Carol, but you have to work for it, and you have to face every uncomfortable truth you've been hiding. She gave a shaky laugh, almost a sob, and whispered, I will, I promise. It wasn't the perfect resolution, far from it. The humiliation was still fresh, and the tension in the family would take weeks, maybe months to settle. But it was a start. For the first time, Carol wasn't running from her past. She was facing it, painfully, publicly, and honestly. By the time the evening rolled in, the hospital waiting room had emptied considerably. Carol sat quietly, wrapped in a thin blanket my mum had thrown around her shoulders. Her face still carried the marks of tears and humiliation, but there was a subtle shift in her posture, less rigid, more reflective. My aunt, surprisingly, softened a little. Carol, this doesn't erase what you did, but you've at least acknowledged it. That's a start. Carol nodded, her voice small but firm. I never would erase anything. I can't do the hurt, and I can't pretend I was innocent, but I want to try to be better, to all of you and to myself. Max, who had been silent for most of the day, gave a tentative nod. It'll take time. Some of us might never forget, but actions speak louder than words. If you show you're serious, maybe people can start trusting you again. My mum sighed, relief mixing with exhaustion. Your father's surgery went well. That's what matters most right now. The rest we handle it together as a family, but you need to stay accountable, Carol. No more running from the truth. Carol exhaled, almost as if she had been holding her breath all day. I will, Mom, I promise. I never wanted anyone to see this side of me. I decided to finally break my silence. Carol, everyone makes mistakes, some bigger than others. Today, you've been humiliated. Yes, but maybe this is the wake-up call you needed. The key is what you do next. She looked at me with gratitude flickering in her tired eyes. Thanks, I don't know how I'd get through this without some support, even if it's just you and Mom right now. There was a long pause as we all absorbed the events of the day. The hospital staff had discreetly returned to their routines, though I could tell whispers still lingered in the corridors. Somehow, despite the chaos and the public embarrassment, Carol was beginning to face the consequences head-on. Later, after the surgery update and a quiet dinner in the hospital cafeteria, Carol approached Jake's wife carefully, humbly, and apologetically. She admitted her wrongdoing without excuses, acknowledging the pain she had caused. It wasn't instant forgiveness, but it was a necessary step toward closure. That night, in the hospital room where my stepdad was recovering, the family gathered quietly. No dramatic accusations, no yelling, just tentative conversations about how we could move forward. Carol sat a little straighter, more self-aware, carrying the weight of her mistakes but also the first threads of redemption. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't over. Rumours and judgment would linger, and rebuilding trust takes longer than a single day. But Carol had done the hardest thing, facing herself and the family she had let down. For the first time, it felt like she could start to reclaim her life, even if it meant living with the humiliation as a reminder of lessons learned. Sometimes family drama doesn't end neatly. Sometimes it leaves scars. But growth, however painful, begins with accountability. And that, at least, was a start for Carol.